You were sentenced January 10, 2005 for manslaughter. You're serving a 20-year sentence on that conviction. Your parole eligibility date, May 24, 2014. Your good time date has been adjusted to May 31st, 2023, and your full term date is May 25th, 2024. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am, correct.
Okay, thank you. Would you answer Ms. Jackson, please? Good morning, Ms. Gibbons. How are you?
Come on, I'm fine.
I'm sure this is a big day for you, so you might be a little nervous. I'm just going to ask you to relax and talk about some things related to your case, all right?
Yes, ma'am.
How old are you, Ms. Gibbons?
I'm 53.
And how much time have you served on this sentence?
17. Going on 18.
That's what I have.
Yes, ma'am.
I show that in 1997, you had a conviction on aggravated battery, and you received probation for that. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then in 2000, you had a domestic abuse battery conviction. Remember that in 2000?
In 2000? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did the aggravated battery and the domestic abuse battery involve the victim of the homicide of the manslaughter? Was so the aggravated battery from 97 was committed against the gentleman that you killed.
In what year?
You had an aggravated battery conviction in 1997. Who was the victim in that case?
I think it was a female.
Okay. And what about the domestic battery in 2000? Who was the victim in that case, that incident?
Yeah, that was correct.
So the victim of the manslaughter was also the victim of the domestic abuse battery. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
You know, when I read the facts, you kind of went looking for him. You were armed with a knife. You went to the house where he was, and you knocked on the door. And when he came out, you stabbed him. What was it that you were so angry about?
No, he came to the door, and I was trying to talk to him. I was asking him I needed some sanitary pads and some tampons, and he just came to the door angry and called me all kind of names, called me bitches and stuff. And then before I know it, I jumped off the porch. I knew he was trying to fight me, so I ran down the street. I was running down the street. He outran me, snatched me down by my ponytail, drugged me all the way back down the street in the middle of the highway. Cars were pulling over to avoid hitting us, and he was constantly beating me and stopping me in my private part, constantly just beating me. Then he picked me up over his head, tossed me in the middle of the highway, gave me a permanent scar, as you can see, gave me a permanent scar on my elbow, picked me up, body slammed me, broke my arm in the middle of the highway.
Okay, Miss Gibbons, I have the police report and I have the witness statement in the case.
Yes, ma'am.
You went up to her and you asked her, had she seen the individual and that you were looking for him. She indicated that you had a weapon with you at that time.
No, ma'am.
And I'm just telling you what the report says. And I will tell you that it's hard for me to believe that if this gentleman did all of the things that you're saying did to you in this incident, that you would have been prosecuted at all. But that's not the information that we had.
There was a Miss Raymond, who said she lived across the street from the victim. Said she was on her front porch when the suspect, known to her as Beatrice, walked across her front yard. Raymond told the suspect not to walk across her yard. Gibbons asked Raymond if he had seen Donald Quinn. Raymond said that Gibbons told her that she was going to stab Quinn. She found him. Gibbons took Quinn's residence and began beating on the door. Quinn exited his residence and a verbal altercation ensued between him and Gibbons. Raymond stated she saw Gibbons raise her arm and then took off running across the street. Quinn attempted to follow Gibbons but collapsed as soon as he reached the street. Witness Michael Hines told officers he observed Gibbons running away from the scene and he knew where you lived and he directed him to your home. Now, Ms. Gibbons, when we ask questions about the facts, it's not because we don't know what they are. We ask you to see how honest you're going to be about the situation. And to be quite frank with you, your account of what happened is not correct because I've been a judge for 28 years. And there is no way that everything that you said he did to you prior to your stabbing him happened. You never would have been arrested.
Ma'am, he did. I promise he did. He abused me.
Okay, I'm not, he may have done that in the past, but on the occasion that he was murdered or the crime occurred, that is not the facts that were put forward in the record and undoubtedly in your case. And so again, it troubles me if you can't acknowledge what you've done, accept responsibility for what you've done. Now, obviously, this was a volatile relationship, but in the past, you were the one who was arrested for domestic battery in 2000. And so it really concerns me and disappoints me that rather than acknowledging what actually happened, you tell a different story. That's very disappointing to me as I try to make my decision on whether or not you should be released early.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, it's apparent that you have anger issues. The 97 aggravated battery, the 2000 domestic abuse battery, and the manslaughter that you're serving time for. Why do you have so much anger? What was going on in your life that caused you to have so much anger, caused you to lash out the way that you do?
The day that I caught that other charge, the girl came to my house, kicked down my door, and tried to attack me.
Yeah, you're the one who was prosecuted and pled guilty to or was convicted of aggravated battery. Again, my question to you is, Ms. Gibbons, again, I see a lot of anger in your background with the kind of crimes you've been arrested for, and I'm not hearing any ownership of that as well. It's always somebody else's fault, yet you're the one who commits batteries and stab people, and you're the one who gets charged. So the problem isn't the other people. The problem seems to be you because you're the common denominator in all of these incidents. And I'm afraid that if you haven't, accepted your responsibility, those anger issues might still be there, and somebody else might end up receiving into your anger. So you said that you took understanding angry feelings. What did you get out of that, since you don't acknowledge that you were ever angry enough to hurt people? So what did you get out of understanding angry feelings?
I got a lot out of it when it comes to, because with my certificates, I worked hard for my certificates.
I asked you what you had to work hard for. I asked you, what did you learn?
Ma'am,
Did you learn in understanding angry feelings? A certificate is just a piece of paper.
yes, ma'am.
What did you learn in that program?
What did I learn in the program? I learned not to let my anger control me.
What else? Okay, so how do you do that, Ms. Gibbons? How do you not let your anger control you?
And I also learned to think before I react.
Or did
Because I used to just react. Now I think before I react.
you learn anything that helped you understand why you get so angry? I mean, you seem to really have a temper that flares up and you act out in really violent ways. Did you learn anything to help you understand why you are the way you are?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you learn?
Like I said, I learned to think before I react and not let my
What is it in your life? What is it in your life that has caused, I said, what is it in your life that has caused you to have all of this anger that you direct towards other people? You know, most people don't have that level of anger, and I'm trying to find out from you if you understand why you're such an angry person.
I'm not. It's just that all my life I've been abused by men. I even was abused by my husband in my marriage. That's why I left him.
What about the woman who is a victim of the aggravated battery?
Like I said, she kicked down my door. She got angry with me because I told her, this is what I explained to her. I said, Melanie, I said, I've been keeping your children for a week now, and you finally come and get your children. But thank God I'm related to you because of the fact that I could have called child protection on you, and child protection could have got involved with the situation. But I said, by me being kind and by you being my relative, that's why I didn't do it. But I said I could have called child protection, so she just went on kick down my door at the time when I had told her I could have called child protection on her, but I didn't call child protection on her. But she still kicked down my door and came in with the knife. So I had to protect myself because she kicked down my door.
What did you do to protect yourself, Ms. Gibbons?
Ma'am,
What did you do to protect yourself?
what I do to protect myself? When she was she kicked down my door, and I had to protect myself. For I know it, she was just trying to fight me.
What did you do? What did you do to protect yourself?
What I do to protect myself? I fought her back because she.
Okay, fighting, then an aggravated battery involves a weapon. It's given.
Yes, ma'am.
So it wasn't just a fight.
No,
What
she brought a knife and tried to cut me with the knife. So I took the knife from her and cut her with the knife because she tried to harm me. She kicked down my door.
Why did you get arrested?
Why did I get arrested? I got arrested.
I said, why? If you were an innocent victim in your own home, somebody kicks in your door and tries to stab you with a knife, why would you be the one who got arrested for the charge?
But that's how they did it.
Okay, Ms. Gibbons, I don't think we're going to make a whole lot of progress with this interview because you just don't seem to be able to acknowledge your wrong, your fault. You know, again, if you show the police where this woman had kicked down your door,
Yes, ma'am.
explained to them what happened. If there was evidence to support that, you never would have been arrested. And yet you sit here and it's everybody, it was the victim's fault in the manslaughter, it was the victim's fault in the aggravated battery. And I just don't see that you've gained a lot of insight in your last almost 18 years in prison. That makes me feel comfortable that you're not gonna get out there again, and somebody make you mad and you know, you lash out. Because I just don't see that you've gotten a real understanding of your own issue. I really don't. I'm really disappointed by that. You were were you using alcohol and drugs during this period of your life?
I just drink a beer every once in a while. I wasn't using no hard alcohol.
So a beer every once in a while, that's it?
Yes, ma'am.
But I see you took Celebrate Recovery. Why did you take Celebrate Recovery?
Because I wanted to rehabilitate myself all the way through the process.
I understand. Sometimes you just take classes because they're classes and you want to get some credit. But I mean, you only drank beer every now and again. Why did you need a substance abuse class?
I didn't receive any credit on the substance abuse class at all.
You
I just-
didn't get any
I took
credit.
it so I can rehabilitate myself.
What about risk management 1 and 2? What was that about?
I wanted to further my sobriety.
What? If you only drank, see, you're saying that, but then you tell me, oh, I only drank a beer every once in a while. So you didn't have a substance abuse disorder based on what you just said, because of your fact that you drink a beer every now and then doesn't make you an alcoholic or a drug addict, and yet you take risk management because you say you want to, further your sobriety. But you don't admit to having had a drug problem or an alcohol problem.
I really didn't have no alcohol problem or a drug problem.
Well, tell me about your job at Copeland's.
My job at Copeland, well, I work with a nice staff, a nice caring staff, and they nice people. They friendly, they love me. And I go in there, I stay positive at all times. I do my job, and that's it. And I'm very nice to all the staff members, very nice to me. They all show love. They always
What happened? What happened? Somebody made you mad back there in the kitchen with all those knobs back there. What would you do?
I don't work in the kitchen, man.
Okay.
I work. I'm a custodian worker.
I'm just saying, if you got a full-time job at Copeland, you might find yourself in the kitchen.
Well, my job is custodian work.
I will tell you that the entire legal community and all law enforcement are opposed to your early release and talk about the nature of the crime and quite frankly, your history of violence. And those are things that are concerning to me as well. If you were to be released early, Ms. Gibbons, what's your transition plan? Where would you live? Where would you work?
I was going to stay at Copeland for a little while until I could get transportation back and forth. And then I was going to try to find me a housekeeping job somewhere. But they always need a housekeeper, different place.
Plan there. If you were to get out, Ms. Gibbons, where do you plan to live?
With my sister,
Where does your sister live?
she lived 5629 Stewart Circle,
And I'm in the city. Miss
Alexandria.
And where are you working in Copeland?
At Copeland, I was going
Where is that location?
in Monroe.
So how would you get from Alexandria? That's a pretty long drive. You don't have transportation. You certainly can't expect somebody to drive you from Allen to Monroe to work. So how would that work?
Well, I was going to eventually get a car, eventually.
Well, I know, but until you got a car, you have to work somewhere to earn money to get a car. And I don't know what's your plan to do that, because obviously you cannot commute from Allen to Monroe.
Yes, ma'am.
So what's your real plan? That's not a plan.
Well, I got some housekeeping jobs lined up for me as well. I just got to accept them.
Who's in the room with Miss Gibbons?
It's Deputy Marchand.
Debbie Marchand, do you know anything about her? How long she's been there, and can you tell us anything about her?
The only thing I know is she's been here slightly over 530 days. Almost the entirety of that spent at our work release program. And she has 0 incidents or write-ups or any informational, anything written on her since she's been here.
That's good to know. All right, thank you very much. Ms. Gibbons, that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Ms. Gibbons. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you?
I have a couple of questions, but first I'm going to ask you, tell me about the program Helping Women Recover. You've taken phase 1, 2, and 3. Tell me about the program.
Well, the program I took, I got a lot out of this program because it taught me a lot. And I also became a peer facilitator in my class. I got like 16 or 17 certificates just for being a teacher of the class. So I not only did I rehabilitate myself, I got a chance to teach the class, and I taught others, the warning of, domestic violence.
So that class deals with domestic battery.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how long did you facilitate that class?
I think I did it for like 4 years while I was in St. Gabriel.
Now, Ms. Gibbons, I want you to relax. I'm going to ask you one question, then you think about it, and then you give me an answer, okay?
Yes, sir.
The victim of your manslaughter conviction, how long were you in a relationship with this victim?
3 years.
And you had another domestic conviction dealing with this victim. Is that correct?
No, not dealing with that victim.
You said one of your domestic abuse arrests were with this victim. Is that correct?
No, it was with his cousin.
No. One of your previous convictions, victim of the manslaughter, was also the victim of that case.
No.
So, Ms. Jackson, did you not tell Ms. Jackson that you had a previous conviction where this gentleman was the victim of the crime?
I don't understand what you're saying. Make it more clear for me.
You had a conviction, I think, in 2000. Am I correct? Dealing with domestic abuse. Am I correct?
Okay, that was with the cousin.
That was a 1997 conviction.
Okay.
What I'm trying to get at is that you had a conviction, a misdemeanor domestic abuse battery in October of 2000. Who was the victim?
Melanie Giddens.
And who was the victim, which are 95 arrest for civil battery?
I think that was Melanie Giddens. I'm confused. I think it was Melanie Giddens.
And then you had another conviction for aggravated battery in December of 1995. Who was that?
I don't recall.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
okay. The explanation that you gave Ms. Jackson
Okay.
was completely a different version from the original police report. Is it possible that you had other investing encounters with the victim and you mixed up the two with one another?
Let's see. Oh, I did have a problem with him because of the fact that I was renting a house and he wouldn't let me in my own house, so I didn't fight with him or nothing. I just politely left the scene and went to my mother's home.
Could there be another victim where he chased you, pulled you by the hair, and threw you in the street?
Yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened.
And that's what happened on the manslaughter. Is that correct?
Yeah, but it's another time that he picked me up and threw me in the streets again, but he beat me up and left me for dead in some people's yard.
What I'm trying to do is trying to figure out whether or not you have mixed up two different domestic abuse situations
I think I probably have.
and you don't remember exactly what happened when you stabbed the victim.
I remember what happened.
And when you stabbed him, it was because he pulled you by the hair, dragged you to the street, and body slammed you on the surface of the street.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. We'd like to hear from your supporters. Could we hear from your sister, Ms. Viola?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Well, I really don't have a lot to say. I am the seventh child out of 15 sisters and brothers. Beatrice is the sister, baby sister. I'm 63 years old. And when Beatrice was incarcerated, I took on a hard role. That was to raise her 4 boys, take care of her too. It was very, very hard. I don't understand all of this. What has happened to Beatrice, what happened to all of us is called life. Life happened. I can't understand it. I don't understand it now. I live it. I live it. God, I live it. And like I say, it's been hard. It's been very, very hard. When Beatrice was incarcerated, maybe 3 weeks after, her oldest son, which would have been 12 or 13 years old, I don't remember, he was killed in an accidental shooting. He was with me when Beatrice was incarcerated. Beatrice wrote me a letter and said, give him to his dad. I did that. I gave him to his dad that Friday. He was killed on that Monday. Accidental shooting. I had to then bury this child, go to a grave site with this child. I'm the auntie, you know. Only thing I'm asking now is for empathy to walk in my shoes. Empathy from the board for me and my family. It's been hard, very, very hard. I have a sickness that you say I might not live, but I'm living. They say I'm supposed to be dead 3, 4 times. I'm still here. But I just need the board to have some empathy for my family. Like I say, what happened to Beatrice is something called life, and it happened to all of us. Justice is being served, and all I ask the board is for empathy for my family. I'm so sorry, whatever happened with Beatrice and Mr. Quinn, but excuses and reason why she did what wouldn't make a difference. All I know is life, and I'm living it. And it's been very, very hard for me to raise 3 boys by myself, 3 young men. I got one in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. He's in the Army. I made sure they had everything by myself, me and God, a single parent. I did that. I paid for my home. If B come home today or tomorrow, she have a home here. She will be all right. I need some counseling. I feel like she needs some. And we're gonna get that together. We're gonna get that together. It's been hard. So just asking the board for empathy. Empathy is all I'm asking for. Because I have already asked God for his grace and mercy for 17 and a half years. And he have did that for me. So I'm here. I'm here for B. B have a home. B have grandkids that need her now. I need her. I make 4 and 5 trips to Shreveport, sometimes 4 times a month, going to the doctor. I can drive myself sometimes. Sometimes I need help. But just asking for empathy. Life have happened. It happened to all of us. B have been sentenced. B is doing justice, what they call justice now. I understand all of that. I don't know. There's nothing I can say, nothing I can do, but here I am for B and her boys. I did that. So please show me and my family some empathy.
Thank you, ma'am.
All I got to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh.
Thank you. Reginald, we'd like to hear from Reginald.
Hey, how you doing? First and foremost, yeah, I'm Reginald. Beatrice's youngest son, currently stationed at Fort Campbell, sitting outside of work as we speak. And I would like to say, when it comes to justice and murder, I feel like justice definitely has been served. It's been hard for all of us. I do not excuse what my mother done by any means. Murder is zero tolerance, no matter what the situation was. I will say he probably did not deserve to die, but like my aunt said, that's life, and things happen. But I can say the last 17, 18 years of my life has been tough. If it wasn't for my aunt, God, thank you for my aunt. If it wasn't for I don't know where I would be, honestly. I know my mother. My mother is deeply sorry. She probably don't know how to take responsibility right now, but I know she regrets what she's done. In my heart, I don't believe that she's the same person that as the same person that she walked in, and when she leaves, she probably won't be the same person. 17 years is a long time. It's a long time. Ma'am, I don't know your name. I seen you talking to her, and you just wanted her to own up to it, and and at the end of the day, that's called being grown, and that's assuming responsibility for your actions. And maybe she didn't understand what you was asking her to do, but I'm telling you, I understand. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I was supposed to have 3. One of my twins passed away. And it's hard on me because, my wife has an illness. So I wake up at 4:30, and sometimes I'm making home to 6, 7 o'clock. I'm actually on a 24-hour recall for Ukraine as we speak. Uh, so it's hard. The biggest thing for me right now is childcare. I feel like the biggest punishment my mom could have is missing out on her kids growing up. My first basketball game, my graduation, you know, and I just don't want her to miss my daughter's first steps. It's key things in life that as a as a decent human being in society that you don't want to miss. I feel like my mom has turned her life around tremendously uh, through the talks we have had. Like I say, I don't excuse her actions by any means, uh, but I do support her from here on out. I'll be the best support system. I have an extra room if she need be. She can come stay with me in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. But I just want my mom to come home, and I just want y'all to have some leniency and some empathy for me and my family. And yeah, that's all I can say. But like I say, I don't condone what my mother has done in the past, but I do believe she's not the same person she was back then. I know in my heart she's not the same person.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. We do appreciate your remarks, and thank you for your service. We also have here in opposition, I believe, from the District Attorney's Office in Rapides, Mr. Johnson. Are you with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is Derek Johnson. Go ahead, sir.
Thank y'all for having me today. The District Attorney's Office of Rapides Parish still opposes any early release. I don't think she understands the totality of circumstance and the consequences that led her to the moment. I think she probably needs some more classes and just some more therapy to understand, like some victim impact classes to help understand, what all happened. I don't think she necessarily understands what happened and just the impact that it had in the victim family lives and of that nature. So we're still opposed to any early release or any consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Gibbons, is there a statement you'd like to make before the panel votes?
I just want to say that I am very remorseful for what happened for my actions, because I truly did love Don with all my heart. I loved him. I wasn't trying to take his life. No, I wasn't, because I loved him so much. I wasn't trying to take his life. I was just trying to keep him. I would get him off of me, because he was beating me very bad. He had even sat on top of me and was just beating me. He had already kicked me upside my head multiple times.
Thank you, ma'am.
Then he had kicked me in my private spot. And I was just trying to get him off of me. I wasn't trying to take his life, because I loved him.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Panel prepared to vote. Ms. Jackson.
Ms. Gibbons, let me just start by addressing Ms. Viola and Reginald. Ms. Viola, I'm sorry for the hardship you have gone through, but it sounds like you did a remarkable job with those young men. I'm sorry about the loss of your other nephew, but Reginald, I would like to express my pride in you and what you've accomplished. You are a very fine young man, and a lot of that credit goes to Ms. Hampton for the way that she raised you. I acknowledge that. Gibbons, when I came into this hearing, I really wanted to be able to bring you relief. I really did. Because of the amount of time that you served already on the crime and the fact that you had a good recommendation from Copeland's and you had taken some programs. But as I said earlier, I was just really, really disappointed that you just refused to accept any responsibility for anything that you've ever done. Everything has always been somebody else's fault. And when you have that mindset, then you're just one angry moment away from something else happening. And I'm just really, concerned that you don't have a real appreciation of the magnitude of your actions. I don't think you have a real understanding of the anger issues. And the entire legal community, as well as all of law enforcement, opposed to your early release. You have a history of violence in your prior criminal history. And I just don't think you're ready. I don't feel comfortable today voting to release you early. Worst case scenario, you'll get out in May of next year. But I just think you need some more programs. I don't know if victim accountability, victim awareness rather, is available to you. But you need some more help. You might even need some mental health counseling because you've got this block that prevents you from being able to see your anger and to see your actions for what they are. But today, I just can't. I wanted to, but I just can't vote for your early release today. And so my vote is to deny. Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ms. Gibbons,
Sir,
you have presented a very difficult case this morning. And I want to thank your son for his statement this morning. And I'd like to thank him for the service to our country. Ms. Gibbons, you have served 90% of your sentence.
sir.
I think you're eligible for a good time release sometime next year. And I don't think anything's going to change between now and then. Served 18 years of a 20-year sentence. And I don't think you can come to terms exactly what you did.
Yes, sir.
No version of it is not even believable. As Judge Jackson said, if you could prove exactly what you said, it would have probably been ruled justified homicide. And you wouldn't have been indicted.
Yes, sir.
But that was 18 years ago.
Yes, sir.
You have done well in 18 years, and you've taken what I think is an appropriate program. The helping women recover phase 1, 2, and 3.
Yes, sir.
Give you a perspective what battered women go. And the facility thought enough of your performance in phase 1 and 2 make you a facilitator for 3 or 4 years.
Yes, sir.
I don't think another 14 months is going to change anything in Beatrice giving. So I'm going to vote to grant your request this morning. because I don't think incarcerating you any longer is gonna do any good.
Yes, sir, thank you.
I want you to have a curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Yes, sir.
You must have a confirmed residency plan. And I don't think you should forget about COVID. I think you should go home and find a job. Your sister will supply a residency plan, and you get help from your son.
Yes, sir.
But you won't be released until that residency plan has been confirmed.
Yes, sir.
As you release, I want you to enroll in anger management classes.
Yes, sir.
The parole officer will see that you enroll in anger management classes.
Yes, sir.
I want you to get a mental health evaluation,
Yes, sir.
and I want you to follow all recommendations of that evaluation.
Yes, sir.
I want you to attend NAAA meetings as instructed by your parole officer.
Yes, sir.
At this point, I don't know whether or not you need it, but at the mental health evaluation, after that evaluation, they will make recommendations. And whatever your parole officer tells you,
Yes, sir.
whether it's twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, I want you to attend NAAA meetings.
Yes, sir.
I have a funny feeling mental health and alcohol, and whether it's alcohol or drugs or just alcohol, plays a very important part in your anger.
Yes, sir.
So you can get in anger management classes, get a mental health evaluation, and get treated.
Yes, sir.
I wish you all the luck in the world.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Givens, so you've received one favorable vote, one vote to deny. I share the same concerns as Ms. Jackson and those expressed by the DA's office. So I think you have a little more work to do. We want you to be successful when you do get to go home. But I think you need some more victim awareness and some more classes, particularly one that's called Thinking for Change. I think would be extremely beneficial to you. So my vote today is going to be to deny your parole. And I'm going to make the recommendation that DOC give consideration to putting you at a facility that will afford you those classes before you release. So today, today's proceedings mean is that your parole's been denied.
Madam Chair, can we add those conditions which I stated?
To the good time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Ms. Givens,
Yes, ma'am.
today parole's been denied, and those conditions that Mr. Roche outlined for you will be added to your good time release certificate. So there'll still be a requirement for them.
Thank for a change.
No, the all the things that Mr. Roche, we're gonna try to get you that before you get out. Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Marchand, I think that concludes our business at your facility. We'll adjourn at 9:48. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wow. I was surprised by that one, frankly. It's Miss Jackson was not happy with the hearing. Now, Mr. O'Shea, you got to give him credit because he's just on top of everything. He's looking at the documents and he's seeing that it's possible or likely that she was talking about an event that occurred when he had done those things to her, pulling her hair, and that was a different event altogether. And I think Mr. O'Shea picked that out, and that's why he brought that up while Miss Jackson was talking to her. But that doesn't change anything of the fact that she as Miss Jackson clearly stated, was in complete just denial about any culpability, any responsibility. Now, we have no information on this case, so sadly, I can't unpack it for you, go over court records, because there's just nothing there. But I think what is clear is that she has a history of really hurting people, and sadly, an inability to admit culpability in it, an inability to even at her parole hearing, when it's in her best interest to like even just take a step back and say, yeah, I took his life. And there's no doubt that the courts mess up and that people who are locked up shouldn't be locked up. But I don't have that. That's just not my takeaway from this case. From there's nothing that she said that would make me believe that. I don't even know why I'm bringing it up, right? It's just the idea that it. And then I guess Mr. O'Shea is like, well, I mean, there's no victims there, which is rather sad, right? There's no one representing the victim. The assistant DA doesn't show up to talk about the case. And if that had happened, things might have been different. So there's a man whose life is lost and who's completely forgotten, frankly. And then, Mr. O'Shea is more on the approach of, well, you're kind of so messed up. You're just so far gone. And the system, you're not going to get any better. So you served so much of your time. Just, let's just let you out. And well, she, on that note, she hasn't reoffended. She hasn't been revoked. We don't have any records of her doing anything wrong. But it is, listening to the hearing, I was when the examples Miss Jackson was saying, which was, well, what if you worked in the kitchen with a knife? And what was her answer? I don't work in the kitchen. And it's like, oh my gosh. Well, what if you do? And there's examples of her getting jobs as being what was it, like a housekeeper. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, like she's just one kitchen knife away, and one bad incident away. Could you imagine hiring her to be your housekeeper? I'd be walking on eggshells. I'd be terrified. It could never happen. But then what's interesting is you hear from the DOC that she's been working for the amount of time she's working, and they never had a single problem with her. No write-ups, nothing. She's been doing great. And I just didn't get that impression from that interview. The interview, to me, I felt anxious listening to it. I felt like she was, there was a temper there. I felt like she was already ready to jump out of her seat. And it felt scary. To me, it really felt just scary. And then on the flip side, you have, which is a beautiful thing, she has, her son has done so well for himself. And I think that's, if you want to look at the bright side of this, it's that, at least all the struggles that he had to, but albeit not because of his mother, right, but because of his aunt, is that it, who was then taken in and had to basically raise her kids for her. It was nice that the board gave her kudos for it. It was almost odd listening to the hearing, because it felt like she forgot, like, why she was there. It was almost like it was like a therapy session for her. She's talking about how all the hard work she had done, but maybe there was no place for anyone to listen up until that hearing. I wish I had more information to share. It's always tough when there's no documents to go over, and I'm just talking off the hip here. But it was, to me, it was a pretty intense hearing, And then when you come down, the bottom line, it's like, well, what do you do? Do you keep her locked up for another year or so and hope that you can get more out of it? Or do you release her? And I don't know what you would have done. I don't know what I would have done. I think that you got to keep her locked up because it's about the accountability. It's just like it's like, you know, the ideal would to be locked up and to then have another parole hearing where at least she could try to go through the motions of understanding what to say and take culpability. Maybe that could help. I don't know. But I don't know. But hey, it worked. We haven't heard from her, so it seems to have worked. And that, I'll let you go. Okay, well, now we're going to watch a case that also depicts just how broken the system is. Now, it's a different kind of format. It's when they first started doing these parole hearings in 2020, and they don't have the parolee here at the hearing. Now, I kind of been pushing off doing these hearings because it's just we're not used to that format, and I prefer when the parolee is there. But Richard had this highlighted in red, and I checked it out, and man, I, to say the least, got pretty fired up. So with that, let's jump in.
JALEEL Broadway, DOC 709125. It is a board review case. We have David Coleman, who's the attorney, and also with him we have Letitia Allen Demir, who's the mother. We have Adele Krieger, Orleans ADA, Randy Meyer, Jefferson ADA. We have Minnie Allen, who's the grandmother, who's here in support. We have Brett Ruffin, who's the victim, who would like to speak. We have Imani Ruffins, who's the victim's mother, who would like to speak. And we have Jessica Faulkner, who's the sister, who's here in support.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Cheryl Renatza, serving as chair of today's parole committee panel. My colleagues on the panel, Mr. Alvin Roche, Ms. Pearl Wise, and this was a review of Mr. JALEEL Broadway's case, DOC number 709125. I would like to ask Mr. Coleman, sir, would you just introduce yourself for the record? I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Okay. Good morning. My name is David Coleman. I'm here to speak on behalf. I'm here to speak on behalf of JALEEL Broadway.
Okay, thank you, sir. And so the way we'll do this is I'll just read some identifying information into the record, after which I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Roche, because this case was assigned to Mr. Roche, who conducted an interview with Mr. Broadway. And then we'll hear from the folks who've indicated they'd like to speak today. Well, actually, we'll hear from the folks who've indicated they want to speak first, and then Mr. Roche will present the case. And then Mr. Coleman will ask you to wrap it up for us before we reach a decision, okay? So this is the case JALEEL Broadway, DOC number 709125. He's classified as a first felony offender. He was sentenced March 10, 2016 for possession with intent to distribute heroin. He received a 10-year sentence. March 10, 2016 for possession of cocaine. He received a 5-year sentence. Those convictions were in Jefferson. And then in Orleans, he was sentenced August 20th, 2018. Criminal conspiracy, second-degree murder. He received a 20-year sentence. He has a parole eligibility date, which was October 15, 2020. His adjusted good time date is November 17, 2021. Full-term date is October 15, 2035. So at this time, we'd like to hear from those who've indicated they'd like to speak in opposition. So Mr. Ruffins, could we hear from you first?
Yes, ma'am.
So if you would just introduce yourself for the record and tell us your relationship to the victims.
Okay, I am first cousins with the victim's mother.
Okay.
My father and her father are brothers.
Okay, good. Thank you. And state your name, sir.
I'm sorry, Brett Ruffins.
Okay, go ahead and tell us what you'd like us to know.
Well, I just want to, oh, this is going to be rough. Anyway, I had a long version, but then I was told I had limited time. So I just want to say good morning, everybody. And I want to let everybody know how this has affected our family. And I remember, I wrote some notes down so I could stay on track. I remember the day Milan got killed like it was yesterday. I was at a family gathering out here on the West Coast, eating, drinking, laughing, and having a great time. I remember my wife saying, "I think your phone is ringing." When I looked at my phone, I saw it was my cousin Frank. At first, I thought he was calling to wish everybody on the West Coast a happy 4th of July, but that was not the case. I could barely hear him over the noise of our family celebrating the 4th. So I walked out the front door so I could hear what he was trying to tell me at this point. At this point, I can hear in his voice something was terribly wrong. And as I was trying to compute what he was saying, I remember thinking, this can't be real. He said Milan had gotten shot and killed. This can't be real. Not a car accident, not a long bout of cancer, but shot and killed. Her life taken. This can't be real. My cousin, who did nothing to deserve this fate, especially to the two cowards involved in this nightmare, Mr. Broadway or Mr. Reed. That was a day that we will never be forgotten in the Ruffins and Ariel families. The pain that you cowards cause this family is unbearable. You don't know what it's like to open up Facebook every Monday for Milan Crush Monday to see all the pictures of her smiling and having fun. I talk to my cousin Imani all the time, and I can't believe the strength and poise she has maintained throughout this whole ordeal. Whereas I'm ready for revenge and retaliation and get back, I made a conscious decision over the years not to waste time thinking about coward number 1 and coward number 2 because they're not worth it. That all changed a couple months ago when I was talking to Imani on the phone, and she said that they were going before the parole board already. I said, this can't be real. How can this be eligible for parole? This can't be real. See, for you have been in prison and time has passed. But for our family, this just happened yesterday and the pain is still too deep. By you even going to the parole board, you are victimizing our family again. And if you get released, you will be victimizing our family again. So it just never stops for us. Every time you two clowns go before any parole board, we will be there as a family to meet you head on. Never forget her name, Milan, 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 Milan. And with that, I hereby humbly request the parole board that your parole be denied until you serve the entirety of your sentence. Mr. Broadway, we will never stop fighting to keep you where you belong. I'll see you again at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffins. And I do see that we have Mr. Roy Ariola who's joined us, and we'll call on you in just a moment, sir. First, we'd like to hear from Ms. Imani Ruffins.
Yes.
And you are the victim's mother, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am.
When we first went to court for this trial for Milan, it was reset over a period of 3 years. I've been a police officer for 23 years. I know how the court system works, and I was very patient. Milan's dad and I decided to offer JALEEL Broadway, who is the shooter, and Will Reed 20 years because we did not want our family to sit through that trial and hear all the details about how she was shot and killed. It was with our understanding that they would serve 20 years. If we would have known that they would be eligible for parole, we would have went on with a trial. I offered 20 years because we had Milan for 20 great years. And I wanted them to sit 1 year for every year that we had her. Milan isn't allowed a second chance. I know parole hearings are to allow people and criminals and killers to get a second chance at life because they are allegedly reformed. Milan doesn't get a second chance to graduate from college. She doesn't get a second chance to have a child. She doesn't get a second chance to get married, or I don't get a second chance to hug and kiss and tell her I love her like I did every day. My last words to Milan was, I'll see you tomorrow. I don't get a second chance to see her tomorrow. Milan's last words were, call my mommy. JALEEL Broadway can speak to his mother every single day. She can go visit him whenever she would like to. And even once he serves this 20 years, he can get out, he can have a family, he can go to college, he can get married, and his family can see him and touch him and tell them they love him. We don't get a second chance. And it is my request that he is denied parole until he serves his complete 20-year sentence.
Thank you, Ms. Ruffins. Thank you. Mr. Ariola, if you would unmute your mic, we'd like to hear from you. There you go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi,
Go
I'm
ahead,
Roy
sir.
Ariola. I'm Roy Ariola, father, murder victim Alana Ariola. I'm here in opposition to the possibility of granting parole or probation to JALEEL Broadway. In August 2018, we agreed to a plea deal of 20 years for each defendant. The intent was to deter them from future criminal conduct. We felt that 20 years would still allow for these defendants to be punished for their crime and hopefully make adjustments in their behavior and come out and become productive members of society. Let's begin with July 3rd, 2015, when JALEEL Broadway and his partners in crime planned and carried out a crime of murder in Milan Ariola. This was not a crime of opportunity. They knew their targets and they acted with no regard for human life. The killers proactively and intentionally engaged in a crime of violence and took the life of an innocent victim, our daughter Milan. On that dreadful day, the killers recognized the vehicle Milan and a friend were driving. The killers drove a little further down the street and laid in wait to ambush Milan and her friend. Once Milan's vehicle came upon them, the killers opened fire, striking and killing Milan. Imani and I lost our daughter Milan. Our son lost his big sister, and countless relatives lost their special relationship with Milan. Milan would never have the opportunity of becoming the pharmacist she was preparing to be. Milan would never have the opportunity to graduate from college. Milan will never get married. Milan will never have children. Milan will never buy a house and make it a home. Milan will never retire and grow old with her family. We are family. We will never get the chance to experience any of these special moments. We cannot hug Milan. We cannot kiss Milan. We cannot tell Milan we love her in person like other parents. We only get to visit Milan at the cemetery, which is not a place any parent wants to visit their child. In contrast, JALEEL Broadway will have the opportunity to do all of the above. JALEEL's family can visit him. They can hug him. They can kiss him. They can tell him they love him in person and have him respond. JALEEL, once released, will have the opportunity to achieve and do anything he wants to do. He gets a second chance at life. But Milan, no, she doesn't. He took that from her. JALEEL Broadway admitted in court that he was guilty of murdering Milan and accepted a 20-year sentence. JALEEL Broadway never said he was sorry. JALEEL Broadway never showed any remorse. JALEEL Broadway never showed any empathy. The sentence was fair and just. We know we'll never bring Milan back, but every year JALEEL Broadway is in custody, it forces him to face himself and recognize the value of life, our daughter's life, a life that was worth living. No one has the right to take the life of another. The sentence as it stands demands that JALEEL Broadway reflect on his poor choices. It forces him to remember that Milan was a human being. She was loved, and Milan deserved the same opportunity to live a full life, to experience all the wonders of the world like any other child. For these reasons, we, the family of Milan Areola, beg the board to remember Milan. See her face, hear her laughter, and her cries by ensuring that JALEEL Broadway remains in custody to serve his full sentence. This day we never thought would come so soon, but we find ourselves before you reliving the death of our daughter, asking ourselves why. Why would a criminal justice system that is designed to protect the innocent and punish the criminal allow such a violent defender to be considered for release? During the plea negotiations, we never were informed that there would be such a possibility for a reduced sentence after only 5 years. If you permit such a reduced sentence, we believe the system would have failed us. It would have failed Milan. 5 years for committing a violent, calculated, premeditated murder is not sufficient. We believe you, the parole board, have the power to restore justice for Milan by keeping JALEEL Broadway incarcerated.
Thank you, Ms. Areola. And we do appreciate all of your input. I know this is a difficult situation for all of you. I'm going to ask Mr. Roche if he would present the case at this time. Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I had the interview. It was scheduled on November 12th, 2020. I spoke to Mr. Broadway. Seemed to be a very intelligent young man, 26 years old, first felony offender. And he was very cooperative. First of all, I informed him about the amount of opposition that he had in his attempt to get an early release. I mentioned to him in 5 years with the Committee on Parole, I had never seen this much community involvement. Usually it's family, immediate family and relatives, but the opposition extended to former teachers, the community at large, and just everyone concerned with this case. I have probably over 40 or 50 pages of letters of opposition to his early release, and I informed him of that. He has a low risk assessment score, and I informed him. At first, I didn't see a GED, and his master record indicated that he didn't have a GED. We're going through the report. I did see a diploma from LB Landry, Old Pair Walker, with a GED in 2014. Some of the programs that he completed, personal development, anger management, victim awareness, employment skills, money management, reentry. He completed the first phase of living in balance, but he did not complete the second phase of living in balance. He is currently enrolled in Louisiana Risk Management Models 1, but during the interview, he said he had not completed that substance abuse program. He has not even finished the first phase of that program. There's 2 phases, and he said because of the COVID-19, the classes had been discontinued, and he has not completed any substance abuse program at this time. He said his health was excellent. He said he was on no medication, and he was not on duty status. And for the ones of the participants that are not familiar with duty status, this is when a person has a medical condition or issues that we put him on light duty, but he is not on duty status. He said he had no mental health issues. He just currently was transferred from Rapids work release, a transitional work program, and he was in a 14-day quarantine period when I interviewed him. He has not been assigned any duties at Southwest Transitional Work Program because he has to clear that quarantine before he is allowed in general population. He had no work history. He was in Rapids work release, and he was dismissed by the warden at Rapids because the warden had got a bad report from his job on work release, and he confronted JALEEL with the bad valuation. He became so argumentative, and because he had so many disciplinary write-ups in his history in 2017 and 2018, the warden said that he removed him from the transitional work program at Rapids and had him transferred. He ended up at the Southeast Transitional Work Program, where he's not been assigned a job. He had 7 disciplinary write-ups in 2017 and 2018, and he has been removed from the transitional work program in February of 2020. And I made Mr. Broadway aware this was a negative as far as the panel would be concerned this morning because of his disciplinary issues. Even though he was not issued a disciplinary write-up in February of 2020, he was removed from that program because of poor work performance and disciplinary issues. If released, he will be staying with his mother, Ms. Keisha Allen Deemer, in New Orleans. He said other people that would be staying in the house would be his stepfather and his brother. I also told him that he had opposition from the entire legal community. The judge who sentenced him stated that the offender has not served nearly the time sufficient for the crime that he committed. The DA's office is here today, and they also wrote a letter of opposition in Orleans Parish. The DA's office in Jefferson Parish also submitted a letter in opposition, and there is very strong opposition from law enforcement in the Jefferson and Orleans area. As a matter of fact, the chief of police of Redna, the sheriff in Jefferson, and the superintendent of police in New Orleans are all opposed. He said he had good family support. He had a conflict with his residency plan, which is with his mother in New Orleans, but he said he wanted to work in Lake Charles. And I asked him, how did that work? He said he had a job at Checkers Hamburger in Lake Charles, Louisiana. And he said that basically he would first go to New Orleans, get situated, and then he wanted to go back to Lake Charles to take the job at Checkers Hamburger. He said, when I asked him about community support, he said that he would have to build new relationships in Lake Charles because Lake Charles would be a new environment for him. The staff at Southwest had no comments. because they said he had just arrived after being removed from the Rapids Transitional Work Program by the warden. Victim opposition, again, the family is vehemently opposed to any release. We have very strong letters from the mother and the father. We have very strong letters from the immediate family and the community at large. He said, when I asked him about transportation to and from parole officer visits, work, and doctor appointments, he said he owned a vehicle. When asked about his goals, Mr. Broadway said he wants to reunite with his immediate family, renew all personal documents such as Social Security card, driver's license, and anything that he needed to perform as a regular citizen. He said his long-term goals is to move on with my life. Don't let the past dictate my future, and follow all conditions of my parole supervision and become a productive member of society. I asked him about barriers. He will face barriers being incarcerated, and he will have barriers to be successful on his supervision. He said, my strategy is not to look back at the past and concentrate on my future. I asked him, what is his plan for success? He said, change people, places, and things that led to my incarceration. Madam Chairman, I do have a recommendation in this case, but we'll hear first from the Assistant District Attorney in Orleans Parish, Ms. Krieger, and the Assistant DA in Jefferson Parish, Mr. Meyer, and from his attorney, Mr. David Coleman, and then I will give the panel my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Ms. Wise, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I do not. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Roche, very thorough presentation. Ms. Krieger, can we hear from Orleans?
Good morning, Adele Krieger with the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office. It's extremely evident today that Milan Ariola was very much beloved by everyone who knew her, her family and the community, and she's still beloved today. She graduated with honors from Warren Easton in 2012 and is the daughter of an NOPD detective and a captain from the New Orleans Fire Department, two people who are dedicated to the safety of this city. She was innocent and her life was viciously taken from her. Mr. Broadway was originally charged with second-degree murder before the family graciously allowed him to plead guilty to conspiracy, meaning he wasn't spending his whole life in jail like he would have been if he was convicted of second-degree murder. Their family will spend the entire rest of their lives missing Milan, but Mr. Broadway will have a chance to live his life after he serves his entire sentence, as was agreed. It's only been 5 years since he was arrested. My office does not believe that he has served enough time. The sentencing judge does not believe he has served enough time. The entire community does not believe he has served enough time. As evidence, these are just the letters of opposition that my office received, and I'm sure you did too. For those reasons, I ask that you deny his request for parole. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer from Jefferson.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Randy Meyer, Assistant DA in Jefferson Parish. We are strongly opposed to Mr. Broadway's release. We agree completely with Ms. Milan's parents and the Orleans DA's office. Looking at his record, one, he's insufficient time served at this point. You know, and he's a guy that proves something that I've said for probably 20-something years. You know, drugs and weapons are dangerous people. People who commit crimes using drugs and weapons are dangerous people Unfortunately, in a lot of these cases, we don't have a murder involved. This murder didn't occur as a result of the drugs and the weapons, which is why he's in jail in Jefferson for the Jefferson Parish conviction. But it shows that he's a dangerous individual. He was dealing drugs. He had 19.8 grams of heroin and 2.1 grams of crack cocaine and 2 firearms in his vehicle that were accessible to him when he was pulled over and arrested. A few months prior to that, I believe it was, is when, you know, and you got to think that's a gang-related slang, that, you know, he was upset with somebody and he fired weapons into a car driving down the street and killed Miss Milan. He doesn't deserve to be on the street. I think he was fortunate that her family agreed to a 20-year sentence. I think that was very, I don't know that I could have done. I'll just say that. So we are strongly opposed. We think he needs to remain incarcerated. And finally, his record while incarcerated doesn't show that he's been incarcerated. He's had a number of disciplinary reports. He was removed in February of 2020 from work release. So he was given the benefit of being in a position where he could get in work release and do some good. And he did a poor job and argued with the warden, which resulted in his removal. I think that clearly shows he's not rehabilitated and should be denied. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Coleman, we'd like to hear your presentation and remarks.
Good morning, board and speakers. My name is Attorney David Coleman, and on behalf of JALEEL's family, friends, and supporters, we extend our deepest sympathy to Milan's family and will keep them in our utmost thoughts and heartfelt prayers. In addition, we express our deep appreciation for the opportunity to come before you today to show our full support of the possibility that JALEEL may be granted an early release on parole under the direct supervision of the Office of Probation and Parole. Those who love and really know JALEEL realized that he had to earn the right to receive this opportunity, as it is not automatically given, and commend him for his outstanding efforts. He has taken advantage of every training and work program made available to him. And despite his current circumstance, he has powered through each day determined to be an asset to himself and the world, and especially to our youth. One of his primary goals is to motivate young men who struggle to discover their true potential before falling into the hands of the law. By sharing his personal journey, he hopes to redirect them. There's a solid plan and spiritual support system in place to help him continue his slow transition back into society, which does not include him residing in the city of New Orleans, nor its surrounding areas. He has to move on, and he agrees. His entire family and supporters appreciate your careful consideration of his early release on parole and greatly understand that you have the difficult task of ensuring the safety of all Louisianians. They too count themselves in that number, and thank you for your service. No matter the outcome, they will maintain the posture they've had throughout the entire ordeal by relying on their faith, pursuing peace, and upholding the golden rule. loving thy neighbor as thyself. In conclusion, I would like for the board to consider that JALEEL is currently eligible for parole, that he is a first-time offender, and that his risk assessment score is low. Therefore, we respectfully request that JALEEL be granted parole, early release on parole, under the supervision of the Board of Pardons and Parole. Thank you.
You muted, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I said, thank you, Mr. Coleman. And I asked you, Mr. Roche, did you discuss with Mr. Broadway the loss of 30 days of good time?
Yes, I did, and that was due to one of the write-ups that he received in 2017 or 2018.
Okay, good. Thank you. So are you prepared to offer your recommendation and vote?
I am, Madam Chairman.
Okay, let's do that.
In the case of JALEEL Broadway, my recommendation is based upon him not completing any substance abuse program. He's currently enrolled in the substance abuse program, but he has not completed any program except the first phase of living in balance, and he has not completed the second phase of living in balance. His extreme opposition from the immediate family, the mother and father of the victim, Ms. Milan, wrote very strong letters of opposition. The community at large is opposed. The DA's office is opposed. He was dismissed from a transitional work program in Rapides Parish in February of 2020, only 9 months ago, because of disciplinary issues and poor work performance. He has 7 disciplinary write-ups in 2017 and 2018. While they're not within the last 12 months, it is a general disciplinary conduct that's unacceptable because there were so many write-ups in a short period of time. And he is scheduled for a good time release sometime in 2021. Based on all those factors, my decision today is to deny his request.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Ms. Wise?
Thank you, Mr. Roche, as well. My vote is the same for the same reasons.
And I do concur. My vote today also is to deny based on the poor the opposition that's been expressed here today and the proximity of his mandatory release date, which is November 17, 2021, if he doesn't lose any more good time. So today he's received a unanimous vote to deny his parole. I want to thank everybody for their participation today. Your input's important. Thank you.
Milan, Milan, Milan. That should be the battle cry for this corrupt, broken system in Louisiana. Can one even make it up? You know, what makes this case particularly rattling, shocking, is the idea that even a detective in Louisiana didn't understand that they were getting hoodwinked, that they were getting lied to from the district attorney's office? Explain to me, how is it possible that they sign a deal 20 years but had absolutely no idea that he would be up for parole after 5? There's only 2 possibilities that come to mind, and that is that somehow the law changed, or that the district attorney's office completely lied to them, and then continues to carry out the shameful lie by sending their ADAs to give statements, by sending letters saying they must stay in prison. Even the judge sends a letter. You're telling me the judge didn't know the law? Didn't know that it's not actually 20 years? Then to make a continuation, a mockery of the system, this guy gets a low risk score. He gets kicked out of work release. He fights with the warden. He has 7 write-ups, which is a lot when you only served 5 years. And he is considered to have a low risk score. He doesn't have any repercussions, or the only one that he has is loss of 30 days good time. Who's running the system? Who makes these rules? You know, we always joke about these PhDs and their algorithms with their risk score, but it comes to a point where you just got to look at it and say, are you kidding me? They do it with those who harm children, which is a statistical fact that they're the highest chance of reoffending. And then you give it to this guy, and guess what happened when he got out? It took just 5 months. And the irony of it is that the father who we saw speak, the firefighter, he gets on the radio scanner that there's a shooting in progress. Well, it turns out that the one shot and then killed was our low risk score friend. So he, after getting released, was killed within 5 months. And when the press asked the father, how do you feel about this? The father didn't speak out to say anything, about revenge or about karma or about, no. The words that he said, it just shows that our system doesn't work. That's what he said. And I couldn't agree with him more. Just to think that he applied for parole, he had the audacity to apply for parole, and then his parents, which says everything, or someone paid for a lawyer, and I feel bad for that lawyer, because what's he supposed to do? For a lawyer to try to say why he should get out early, and he brings up the low risk score. This freaking lawnmower. I waited to do the recording for the lawnmower to stop, and it stopped, and it literally starts again. It's like, how much grass do you have to blow away? It doesn't make sense. Anyways, the idea that they would make the family sit through this when he had a guaranteed good time date of just a year away is just more saying about the character of this monster and the character of his family supporting him. Look where it got him in the end. Now we're going to go and watch another hearing. It's the same format and style, but it's of his co-defendant. It takes place a few months later. Before we do that, I just want to bring up a few more points about how messed up it is when you have a system that doesn't protect its citizens. Her uncle's apparently a famous jazz player. Trumpet is. Thank you, Richard, for pointing this out. And his girlfriend was, I think, 9 months pregnant, walking down the street, and someone shot her. And the bullet hit the baby. And they say in this article that the baby actually saved her life. And they're both doing well. But just to show it, crime is so rampant that he has to witness his niece getting killed, who you heard they always say this, oh, she was this, she was that, or he was this, he was that when they died. But from all the accounts, she had the whole world ahead of her. And then to have, I just can't get over it. She's an A plus student and going, it's just like, and the system lies to the family about this 20-year deal. They had no idea. And they said if we knew, we would never have agreed to it. That's sick. Let's go watch the second hearing and see how more, I don't know, broken the system can be.
This is the case of Will Reed, DOC number 633312. Mr. Reed was sentenced August 20th, 2018 as part of a plea agreement for criminal conspiracy to commit second-degree murder. He received a 20-year sentence. So his parole eligibility date is July 4th, 2020. He has a good time date, April 3rd, 2022, with a full term date, July 4th, 2035. Mr. Reed's case was assigned to me. I conducted the interview with him at the Bayou Correctional Center, and I will present that interview after we hear from the folks who have joined us here today. So, Ms. Ruffins, good morning. We'd like to hear from you first. You unmute your microphone, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to start with, of course, I'm opposed to Will Reed being released for obvious reasons, but his criminal past clearly indicates that he has been a menace to society. Will Reed was in jail for 3 years prior to getting out before conspiring to kill Milan for shooting 8 people. He got out because of witness intimidation. Not shortly after he was released, someone shot up his house in retaliation. Shortly then, he was involved in the killing of Milan. He does not need to be released. He has not been in jail for tearing off mattress labels or kicking over garbage cans. He has been a menace and terrorizing the city of New Orleans, in addition to having his family terrorized for his involvement in past criminal activity. He does not need to be out on good time. He should not have been released from the previous criminal activity that he was involved in, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation about early parole. I'm very opposed to it.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Ruffins. We appreciate your input today. Mr. Ariola, can we hear from you? There you go.
There we go. Good morning, I'm Roy Ariola. I'm father of Milan. Again, we both oppose the grant of parole to Will Reed. As we talked about yesterday, and now we're doing it again today, these guys have not proven to the world that they belong on the streets of this city, or any city for that matter. We agreed to a 20-year plea deal. We had no knowledge, none whatsoever, that they will be allowed to have a good time for doing a horrendous crime in our minds, horrendous crime. And because they're in jail and they do what they're supposed to do, they get good time for that. How's that right? Who protects the victims in this case? That does not work for the victim at all. We're at a loss right now. We are definitely at a loss. On July 3rd, 2015, Will Reed and his partners carried out a crime of killing our daughter. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. They knew their targets, they acted with no regard, and took her life. They proactively, intentionally engaged in a crime of violence that took the life of innocent victim, Milan. On that dreadful day, the killers recognized Milan's vehicle and her friend who were driving. The killers drove a little further down the street, laid wait to ambush Milan and her friend. Once the victim came, Milan's vehicle came upon them, they opened fire, striking and killing Milan. We've all lost Milan and never get to see her again. She won't become a pharmacist. She'll never graduate from college. She'll never get married. She'll never have children. She'll never buy a house and make it a home. She'll never retire and grow old with her family. We never get to experience these special moments with Milan. We can't hug Milan. We can't kiss Milan. We can't tell Milan we love her in person. We only get to visit Milan at the cemetery, which is not a place that any parent would want to visit their child. In contrast, Will Reed will have the opportunity to do all of the above. Will's family can visit him, they can hug him, they can kiss him, they can say they love him in person, have him respond. Will have the opportunity to do anything he wants to do once he gets out. He gets a second chance at life. Milan doesn't. He took that from her. Will Reed admitted in court that he was guilty of murdering Milan, accepted a 20-year sentence. So we want to say, leave him there for 20 years. That's what we expected. That's what he said he was going to do. That's what we expect him to do. He never showed any remorse. He never showed any empathy. He never said he was sorry. We know this will never bring Milan back. But every year Will is in jail, it should be force him to face himself and recognize the value of life, our daughter's life, a life worth living. The sentence as it stands that demands that Will Reed reflect on his poor choices. It forces him to remember Milan as a human being. She was loved, and Milan deserved the same opportunities to live a full life, experience the wonders of the world like any other child. For this reason, we, the family of Milan, beg the board to remember Milan, see her face, hear her laughter, hear her cries, and ensure this by Will Reed remaining in custody to serve his full sentence. If such a reduced sentence, and if you permit such a reduced sentence, we believe the system would have failed us. It would have failed Milan. 5 years for committing a violent, calculated, premeditated murder is not sufficient. We believe you, the parole board, have the power to restore justice for Milan by keeping Will Reed incarcerated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ariola. Ms. Krieger, we'd like to hear from the DA's office.
Good morning, Adele Krieger with the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office. We are here strongly opposed today. And I would like to extend my deepest apologies to Ms. Imani and to Mr. Ariola, because it should have, I'm so sorry it wasn't explained to you back then exactly what you were agreeing to. It should have been, and my office apologizes with the utmost condolences. I'm so sorry. Looking at Mr. Reed's criminal history, as was previously mentioned, he was charged with 8 counts of attempted first-degree murder and was pled down to 8 counts of aggravated battery. He got off easy. He was given a chance. Fast forward to the instant case, he was given another chance. He didn't deserve the chance, but he was given the chance when he was pled down to conspiracy instead of second-degree murder. He should serve his full term. If I could go back and rewrite what was done, I would say he'd be in there for 20 years, but it's sadly not up to me. And I've said this already, but Milan was a beautiful, bright, innocent, young example of everything that's good about this city. And her life was completely taken away from us. It's been 5 years. It's not an appropriate amount of time. I know there's nothing we can do to right this situation, but what we can do today is deny his parole. And that's why I asked you to do that today. Thank you.
Thank you. As always, we appreciate the DA's input. So as mentioned, I did have the opportunity to interview by phone Mr. Reed on November 13th. And so I'll just briefly talk about the results of that interview. Of course, it's already noted there's victim opposition. He does score high on a risk assessment tool used by the Department of Corrections. He was able to take advantage of a Blue Walters, which is a substance abuse program, in April of 2019. I asked him, what did he get out of that? He said, I learned to change people, places, and things. When I asked him about his drug use, he said he used pain pills is what he did. We asked him about his physical health. He's got some problem with his stomach. He says he needs some treatment, has no mental health concerns or issues. I asked him about his job history, and he said the longest job he's ever had was at the airport as a bag attendant. He held that job for 3 months. So that's the longest he's ever held a job. Talked about work. What do you want to do whenever he gets out of jail is he wants to go work offshore. He's not a trustee. He does have a write-up from 2018. It was a contraband write-up, and it was pornography. We talked about what his possible residence plan would be. It would be with his sister and mother in New Orleans, but he didn't have an address. Said they just recently moved. He doesn't know what it is. The only other folks who live other than his mother and his sister who live in that household is his newborn niece. We talked about transportation. He has a friend. We'll let him use a car to get back and forth to doctor's appointments and so forth. Talked about his goals. Short term, he wants a family. Long term, he wants to be buying his own house, have a consistent job. He hadn't really thought about any barriers that he might face. His plan for success would be, it was simply follow the rules and not catch new charges, is what he said. He says he feels like he's done enough time. He would tell the victim's family he's sorry for the loss of their family member. The warden of the facility, and he was at the Bayou Correctional Center, and it was Warden Bonnie. He said he didn't have a whole lot to say, but he said he's one of the more well-behaved offenders. He's no trouble. And that's really a summary of my interview. Mr. Roche, any questions or comments?
Ms. Fernandez, if I could, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Ruffin and Mr. Areola. Both are civil servants in the city of New Orleans. One is a lieutenant with the New Orleans Police Department, and one is a fireman. I'd like to thank them for their service. And I also would like to apologize as the victim's advocate on the Committee on Parole. We schedule these hearings 6 months, 8 months ahead of time. And I was unaware, I think everyone was unaware that we had back-to-back hearings. And I want to apologize for putting you through this stressful period of time and have to come back 2 consecutive days to talk about your beloved daughter. And I think both of you understand the system. You both work for the city of New Orleans, so the system is the system. But if we had known beforehand, we probably could have adjusted the schedule. But thank you for your service.
Ms. Wise?
No comments.
Okay, I'm ready to offer my vote. My vote today is going to be to deny parole. He has a high risk score, obvious the opposition that's been expressed here today. He has no job skills and no solid transition plan. So that's my vote today. Mr. Roche?
My vote is the same for the same reasons.
Ms. Wise?
My vote is the same for the same reasons. And again, my condolences to the family.
Yes. Thank you. So he's received a unanimous vote to deny his parole. We do appreciate your courage in spending time with us today and yesterday. Thanks so much.
Well, there you have it. There you have it. Now we know. No law changes. The district attorney's office simply lied. They are really the worst of the worst. They are two-faced, double talking, manipulative trash. The idea that they would send their ADAs to talk a big talk because of the community pressure, otherwise they wouldn't have been there, and they would make statements and letters when they lied to a detective nonetheless. That is sick. There's nothing short of it. They go and they say, hey, we'll do a 20-year deal. I have little doubt that they sat across that table or phone call or whatever it was when they spoke to the grieving families and said, we'll do a 20-year deal so you can avoid a trial. You won't have to worry about this for 20 years. How could they not have said that? There's no way that they didn't. It's just, and that's sick. You know, I don't know why I thought this hearing took place 3 months later. It was a day later. A day later. You know, and thank you for the ADA at least having some decency to apologize. That was nice to see. And Mr. O'Shea apologizing. Although, come on. It's like, who's making the calendar? Really? Are you that spaced out you don't see that it's the same victim a day later? Talk about dropping the ball. This poor family, really from beginning to end, just completely. Imagine serving your city as a detective and a firefighter, as servants to your city, raising your daughter, doing everything you can. And then for this to happen, and then to add insult to injury, to be lied to by the district attorney, insult to injury, to then have to show up to 2 parole hearings back to back. Insult to injury that they have good time dates anyways. One was immediately released, and then he has to hear on the police scanner about his shooting. This guy's released too. He has a good time date of 2022. You heard his record. You heard what he's done. As she had stated, he's not there because he was shoplifting. What is wrong with this system? Actually, it makes no sense. It is bizarre. I mean, we hear from the first case, when he was arrested, he was found with 2 handguns and all that narcotics. It doesn't even make sense because they could have gotten him just on those charges. They could have sent him away for more time than the 6 years he ended up serving or whatever. It's like, make it make sense. How is it possible? I mean, there are cities, there are states and cities where you get caught with a handgun, even if you have a license for it and you have no felonies, but you're not allowed to have it in your car, transport, and you can get 5 years for that, just mandatory. It just makes no sense. But I guess this is part of why we do this, right? And this is something that they can't hide from. This is something where this is why I'm happy I did this. And Richard had it highlighted in red, but I just said I to do the ones where we don't see the perpetrator on the screen. It's just, but I'm so happy we did this to just call out the insanity of the system. You wouldn't. I don't think you could believe it if you didn't see it, and that's why we do this. With that, I'll let you go.